Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. As I said in my last video with the box office recap, there are going to be a couple of videos in regards to box office prior for the next few days. We'll have some other videos here and there just to space things out, but I just wanted to get these two done, all of these three videos in a row, just because these are very specifically about this year. And then in the next video, we'll be talking about comparisons and other things like that. But today, we're talking about the summer because the summer is basically over. Everyone's back to work, or people have been working. I mean, what am I saying? People are going back to school, the kids and stuff like that. So summer has officially came to an end, and of course also for Hollywood as well. Financially speaking, the summer is also over. So we are now going to look back from this summer. It's funny how time flies, right? And we're going to see how things went for the summer. Now, I am looking at May through August. So that's how we're going to look at this. For the fall season, that's where we go from September to December. So we're going to keep it in that time frame for the summer, May to August. So let's see how things stacked up for this summer. So let's get into it. So, as I always do, how I measure success is based off of these things right here. If it's a single digit, and this is all uh, standards of the studio, what I believe the studio would want from these individual productions. So, like if it's a single digit, I would say 2 times. If it's double digit, I would say 2.5. And if it's triple, I would say triple the production budget. And I do also take into account bare minimum. So just like bare minimum, 2 times its budget to make those marks in comparison to the higher margins that I believe the studio would want based off of the investment itself. Now, I'd also do consider any publicly known marketing expenses on top of that also contribute to the investment. So all that combined is where I see where these films fall in terms of success stories and failures. And if no information like that's available, then I'm just judging purely on the production as it stands. So hopefully all that makes sense. So let's get into this. So how we're going to do this is that we're going to go by companies. So we're not going to go by each weekend stuff like that. We're just going to do an overview of each company, how they performed this summer, and then talking about the films that they released during that time period and where they fall into such and such. So let's get into this. So the first company that we're going to discuss is Neon. As you can tell, Neon did not have the best summer. They had 2 releases in the form of The Life of Chuck and Together, and didn't do all that great. Life of Chuck didn't really resonate. Together, I think, was more of a lack of marketing, as I said in the last video. But yeah, was not a great summer for Neon. Really didn't amount to much. So moving on from that, let's go into Sony. Sony had a pretty evenly matched summer season, both good and bad. The one thing though to note is that a lot of the stuff that did well for them is horror. So we have 28 Years Later and I Know What You Did Last Summer, both very low scale films, so didn't really need to do much to turn a profit. Compared to the other films over here, where we have Karate Kid Legends, which I think is more to do with just a lack of care for the brand, and more or less, Karate Kid has just spawned or transformed itself into a television brand, less so of a film brand at this point. So I feel like that's part of the reason for why that didn't perform as well. And Caught Stealing, which, as far as the opening is concerned, it's not going any higher, I think, than that. So maybe a little bit higher, but not anything bigger. So they had a like I said, just a pretty evenly matched summer season. both good and in bad ways for the company. So, but horror was definitely their definitely their savior for the summer. So, next company we'll be looking at is Universal. So I believe of all the companies, if we're just purely talking about quantity, in terms of just films that financially performed well, and I believe, or well, not just financially, I'll take that back, but just quantity, just just a pure amount of movies that did well. I believe Universal takes the cake on that. They had three successes under their belt. How to Train Your Dragon, which I I didn't think it was doing all that well, but then it just slowly just kept building and actually turned very, very well. Jurassic World Rebirth, we know it's a success, but I think that the company themselves might be a little bit disappointed just because these films usually used to rack in billions of dollars, $1 billion each. This one fell a little short of that, but still a success nonetheless. And discrepancies on the production. I don't know why that was the case with that film, but there was just all these discrepancies about how much it costs and stuff like that. And The Bad Guys too, which also surprisingly did well. A lot of it, I guess, is attributed to probably just being the only children's feature that was really out last month. So, but they definitely had some bad sides to them this summer as well, though, because a couple things under their belt did not do too well. The Phoenician Scheme, which I'm not surprised, it's a very small type thing. Megan 2.0, which I think is honestly the shocker of the season for me. I thought that would do well, but it didn't. It had a similar effect to Joker 2, Folia Dukes, where a lot of people just did not like the approach to the sequel. They did not like the story, they did not like the way that it was being handled, and because of that, you just saw attendance just get lower and lower and lower, just coming into that weekend. Ticket sales and then just just came off in a very very small state, which, as far as I can tell, just didn't do all that great for the film. So yeah, I'm surprised. I honestly thought this would do well regardless, but it goes to show you that some people need to have the right story under their belt, or else it's not going to work for them. Nobody too. Literally not much of anybody showed up to watch it. I think a lot of people just forgot it existed, purely a lack of marketing on that regard. And Honey Don't, similar rationale there. I think it's more to do with just a lack of marketing and not strong reception. Both Nobody Too and Honey Don't, I think, just don't have strong reception to them. But yeah, there were some good sides to this company, but there was more bad sides than good in this case. So all right, next company we're going to be looking at is Warner Brothers. So their major tentpoles did not do them any business. However, similar to Sony, their horror properties shined this season. In their good sides, they had Final Destination, Bloodlines, and Weapons, which both went off to do very very well. And both for low scale as well. On the other side, though, we're looking at $300 to $400 million investments here. F1, which I know is I think like 600 million at some point now. Still not great considering just the investment alone. I think it's 300 on production and an additional 100 million. It's yeah. And then we've talked about Superman a few times. Just at this point, it's not gone anywhere. It's not going to get any higher than probably where it's at right now, 610 something. Definitely not going to beat out Man of Steel at this point. It's already out on VOD, so no one's going to care to go out to the theater to watch it now. So I think the company knew it too, that you know that this was not going to go any higher, or that they lost fate that it would get any higher. So yeah, not a great start for the DC newly branded DC universe. So, but they overall the company didn't have a similar to Sony. They had some good sides and some bad sides, but a pretty evenly matched summer for them as well. But again, very very similar to Sony. horror was their saving grace for this summer. They should thank horror, and again, probably be focusing on horror in the future. A lot of these companies, because that's where the future is at least if you ask me. So, all right. Next company we're going to be looking at is Lionsgate. Um, yeah, for those who are wondering why Lionsgate is potentially going to get bought out by Legendary Pictures, this is why. They had three other failures also this year from this past spring, which we're going to actually talk about in a second here. But another three under their belt to add to that pile. Um, we have Hurry Up Tomorrow, which didn't do much of anything. Ballerina, which was their big thing, but didn't really end up going anywhere. I said before, I think that was more to do with just um, lack of understanding of brand, and understanding more what audiences care about in the context of a John Wick series. They just want to see John Wick. They're not caring about any other players. And then we had Americana, which some people will say was because of the controversy that was surrounding Sydney Sweeney. I doubt that played a big role. I think people just generally just were not going to care to see it. But yeah, yeah, it's been really rough for Lionsgate for the past year or so. So I am. It's not surprising to hear that they're probably going to get bought out by another company here soon. So we'll see how that goes for them. But yeah, not a great summer for Lionsgate. Not a great summer at all. So. All right, next company we're going to be looking at is Disney. So Disney did not have the best. They're not having the best year so far. The two films that we have here are literally the only two films that have done well for them this year. Um, that being, of course, Lilo and Stitch, which is currently the highest-grossing film domestically, and Freakier Friday, which I was actually surprised ended up doing as well as it did. But they had they had a lot of bad sides this summer and just generally this year. It's not been a good time for Disney. All of their Marvel properties have flopped this summer, specifically Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, both not doing as well. Fantastic Four, I think, is now just crossing 500 million. And again, we're talking hefty price tags here. Of course, Elio, which really, really bombed. And most recently, the Roses, which it's under under a division, Searchlight, but still, it's owned by Disney, so they still are. It's applicable to them, and yeah, that didn't do well either. So yeah, this was not the summer for Disney. It's Disney that takes the crown in terms of the highest grossing film domestically, that being Lilo and Stitch. Um, but in terms of just overall success, yeah, it's not been a good time, and it's looking kind of grim. Also going into the latter half of this year, we'll talk about that in the next video, seeing what's going to transpire in the fall. But as far as the summer is concerned, I think Disney is just happy to just move on and is ready to to get to 2026. They're, I think, very, very hopeful that 2026 will be a better year, and it will. And it will. There's other things on the horizon that I think will be that'll be appealing to more of the audience's appetite. But yeah, this year just ain't it. This year it just ain't it for Disney. So. All right. Next company we'll be looking at is A24. Apologies if you hear the vacuum going off. Just my mother's deciding just to vacuum the house right now. But A24. So A24 typically doesn't do all that great. They put out a couple films usually, but very rarely do any of them do well. And this is one of those cases where one of them did well. Materialist, which I think is more to do with just cast. Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, Pedro Pascal being the more notable name, I'd say currently. so did well. But yeah, again though, the company, I still am surprised that they can still create films currently. I think a lot of these they also buy out because they're not they don't I don't think they finance a lot of their films. Uh, I think the only ones they really finance out of this list is Materialist and Eddington. The other two, or maybe Bring Her Back too. I don't know, but yeah, Materialist was their one shining spot. The rest, not so much. Friendship, which I loved that film. I thought that was very good. That didn't do well. Bring Her Back didn't do well. That was, I think, a lot to do with just limited reach. I just didn't hear a whole lot about that film. And Eddington was the results of just division, controversy, or just people just because it is a film that is playing to both sides of the political spectrum, so it wasn't going to. It's a inclusive in many respects, but at the same time very alienating because just how the nature of politics work. But yeah, more downsides for the company, but at least there was a bright spot there with Materialist. Kind of par for the course for this company, if you ask me. So, and then I believe this is the last one, right? Or are we going into other things now? Yeah, this is the last one. These are standalone pieces, so nothing from big companies, just little individual films here and there. None of which did well, but three that didn't do all that well. Rust, thankfully, did not do well. I never wanted a film to fail, but this especially, I'm glad failed because of just all the stuff that happened behind the scenes. Good, I'm glad that failed. Um, Eden, which no one was really going to see that, and the Toxic Avenger. That was purely to do, I think, with a lack of marketing. There was literally no marketing to speak of, and and none of the big outlets wanted to really talk about it either. So that's unfortunate. But yeah, uh, yeah, nobody was going to see that Toxic Avenger though. I don't think it was going to do that crazy, even if it had larger numbers. So, but I believe that is all from the summer. So now what I'm wanting to do actually is that I actually want to compare the spring to the summer because I was curious to see how those numbers stacked up. And well, here we are. So from that list of films that I had mentioned, you would have thought that maybe the summer was worse, but actually it wasn't. The spring actually was one film short um, from tying up from the summer. Summer actually pulled out a little bit more. But more importantly, though, if you were to actually break this down in terms of production, just how much of the investments were on their own, um, you'll find that there was actually more successes just generally all around in the summer. Double digits had a little bit more going on. Triple digits had a little bit more going on. Um, so summer had a little bit more successes, just generally speaking, than the spring did. Spring just had some things here and there, obviously, but in terms of quantity and just terms of just when you break it all down by financial stuff like that, summer just kind of outweighed the spring in some ways. Um, However, uh, and actually no, because if we actually go to the other side of that equation, the failures, summer again didn't really have as much failures compared to the spring. Still sizable when you can do the ratios. When you can think 11 films compared to 25, and then the 10 from the spring compared to the 29. It's like yeah, um, but um, again, showing you again that the only thing that I think the spring actually had that the summer doesn't is that they had less failures um, of triple digit budgets compared to the summer, where there was a little bit more, or at least one more that was released. Um, but summer had less failures with double digits, less failures. or no, just they matched out with single digit because again, just different numbers, so different things. But yeah, I think this is very illustrative. I think that uh, just generally with this year, it's not been great. Um, but there are some things about this summer that wasn't uh, that made it into the vein of potential mediocrity versus turning into what would have been a massive loss. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, we have 25 things compared to the 11 that did well, so it wasn't a great summer. But in comparison to what the spring had to offer, the summer didn't, reach these heights. It was a little bit less so. Um, so if you want to get specific, you can say there that the summer maybe wasn't, had some qualities here and there. And of course, obviously, financially, there were some polls, things that ended up doing fine. Some big successes. Sorry, like Lilo and Stitch, of course. Horror really shined this summer, and I think companies need to capitalize on that in the future. Um, but yeah, was not a good summer. It wasn't. It was very skewed towards the negatives and the positives. But it's to say that there was some bright spots here and there. Um, we will be doing a video comparing last year's summers to this year's, just so you guys can also see where things have gone from last year to this year. But just strictly talking this year, though, uh, yeah, it wasn't a great summer. A lot of companies, I think pretty much all the companies that I listed, all of them had more failures than positives this year. Um, it's just a rough time right now for companies right now in the film business, just because mentalities are changing. People's interests are becoming more specific. It's just a very it's evolving, but also devolving. So it's not working towards their benefit. So they need to change some things up. Like I said, lower budgets. Look at the things that have done well this year, or this summer specifically. A lot of them were low scale. A lot of them were smaller budgeted. You know, so yeah. It's there's a company also that I forgot to mention, a Paramount. They had one success under their belt, The Naked Gun, and then they had, of course, their bigger failures, which was Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning, which that was a huge failure, and Smurfs, which didn't do all that well. I just realized I forgot to mention that company, but um, I'm pretty sure I included it on the list, right? I did. Yeah, I did. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I included it on the list. Okay. Um, yeah, just to make sure that all my stuff checked out. But yeah, this summer was not particularly great. Um, but hopefully the fall will bring a little bit more sunshine. We'll see. We'll get to my predictions in the next video. But those are my thoughts, my analysis on how the summer performed. It was not a great time. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What films do you believe did well compared to the films that didn't? What are your anticipations for the fall? That will be the next video coming up. And yeah, so that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.